Yo guys, it's JD here, back again for another video. Today we have Dragon Ball Daima episodes 14 and episodes 15. I had to cut in, the reviews were spliced together due to some scheduling conflicts, but I hope you all enjoy. Thankfully these episodes move the plot a lot closer to the final battle or setup. We've finally reached the first demon realm, and it looks like the final war is beginning. Some more to say on that. So let's see if some of the predictions I made actually come into fruition. So episode 14 is titled Taboo, and it relates to some of the hidden lore introduced back in episodes 3 and episodes 10. This finally gives us answers on the makers of the spell barrier that was dividing up the realms. But before that, the episode begins with Goku and Co. en route to Warp Sama in Demon Realm 2. The scene then transitions to Gomah and Degesu, who are pressured to ensure that even if they are able to get to Demon Realm 1 without Warp Sama, that they still need protection. So Gomah awaits the special Gendarmerie force. Yes, this is a reimagining of the Ginyu Force, or the Toku Senkai, right? The Super Sentai trope. So, we've seen this already before, right? We've seen this with the Pride Troopers and Super. Even in GT, they had those dancing characters, so the Dancing Brothers. So, I mean, this has been a common trope that's been in all of the series, so I don't really have an issue with it. I was actually surprised I didn't think about this sooner. But yes, this is a special Gendarmerie or Gendarmerie force, which is again a reimagining of the Ginyu Force. They're pretty well animated. They definitely have a lot of character. Gomah, like Frieza, is not really impressed, but we do get a scene where they just start blasting their what appears to be Magicite energy weapons. Again, that Magicite that was introduced in episode 13 was probably a very important piece of context here, because it's the reason why it's the power source essentially of all of the things we're seeing, whether it be the weapons, the generators, Warp Sama, spells and things like that. I mean, a lot of it seems to draw its energy from this energy ore that was introduced. So again, that's one of the things I liked about episode 13, was them introducing that, because it is an explanation for why certain power scaling is the way it is in this show, even if you don't agree with it. But I mean, there's some writing there to kind of defend it, I think. But anyways, they do mention, what's the issue to Gomah, and Gomah's like, he brings up that Goku and Co. are they're not really just children, they're just adults that look like children, and they have bested Majin Buu and Tamagamas. They immediately think it's a joke, which to Degesu's comment, it's no joke, but they think that there's some decent potential. I personally think that they may be more than just gag characters, because even the Ginyu Force was pretty powerful upon first introductions, and even the Pride Troopers did a lot of stuff against even god level characters. So I think there's some potential with the fact that they've established that the Magicite is the power source for a lot of these ballistic weapons and energy-based weapons that they're using. And again, remember, it's magic-based. I mean, they're just connecting the magic to the science. That's what they're kind of doing with this. But it is an explanation that has some merit, and I'm not going to just disregard it just because, most people prefer them to just one-shot all of these types of characters and things. I think it's okay, and I think it's worth giving it a fair chance. But we shall see. The scene switches back to Goku and Co., who have reached Warp Sama, and of course, based off the last episode, they find out that it was currently deactivated. Now, I actually had a problem with this scene, and the reason why is because in episode 13, when Glorio and Arensu have their dialogue exchange, it seemed like at the same time she was aware that something was going up with the Demon Realm and the Gendarmerie forces all being alerted of something, and she probably should have seen that the Warp Sama fish was deactivated. So I assumed she had told Gloria that this was the case, and that's why Gloria was so certain of still advancing forward with their plan. So I think this was an issue, because it just doesn't make sense why they would have had that scene right before Dr. Rinsu contacts Glorio with the whole Warp Sama being deactivated, and then she being alerted by something. I just don't. And she's a very intelligent character. That's another thing. It's like, she's a very intelligent character. She should have picked up on that through inference. So I think, it is a small gripe, but that is something that I think is fair to criticize, because it does slow the story down if they don't know those things. But just something I wanted to mention. Now, in my last review, I did predict that this would be the episode where Gloria would betray Goku in the group, and that did not happen. At least not yet. But yeah, I was wrong, so definitely admit to that. Instead, we got another one, though, of one of my theories, which would be that Neva had the magic of dispelling the barrier. The only thing I was wrong about was that it was actually Neva who set up the barrier in the first place. That I did not predict, but I knew they would use Neva to bypass the barrier. So this is actually huge, because the barrier that was erected a couple millions of years ago, maybe a couple thousands, it's not super clear, but based off the Supreme Kai and his age, it seems like it's been a barrier that was erected a very long time. And this should be expected anyway, since they have the life-stealing devices and stuff like that. But it really showcases just how crazy broken that the Namekians can be. I thought that the third eye that Hybis had would be the catalyst for undoing the seal, but nope. It looks like it's just Neva. Neva's really just that guy. So he utters a Namekian chant, which I think is the same one from the trailer, and then this creates a small ball of like energy or magic, kind of like a god destruction attack, like Hakai, and then he dispels the barrier. Now Goku does try to test the impenetrableness of the barrier with the Niobo, or the Power Ball, but he gets shocked as a response. So, and then he's like kind of falling to his death. A lot of people didn't like this. I mean, it was definitely a drawn out scene for sure, because he's like falling while Neva is doing all this stuff, which seemed a little bit unbelievable. But again, Goku versus Frieza was a very quick fight technically, and it was over the span of like 20 episodes, so it's nothing new in Dragon Ball. But before he falls completely, he does regain consciousness as Neva breaks down the barrier, and then Piccolo and everyone's at Neva's magic. Even Piccolo states that Neva's legendary. And to me, this was the biggest lore moment of the episode, maybe even of the series, because they asked Neva why he created the barriers in the first place, to which Neva responds that it's due to the spreading of the different types of Majins, the troublemakers, the barbaric Majins from the third realm, like the ogres and things that you see, or the really arrogant class, elitist Majins from the first realm. Very similar to kind of China's history, India's caste system, things like that. I mean, that's what they're kind of invoking here. The Namekians were never really at peace. Same thing with the Glens and whatever other passive races that existed in the Demon Realm. And so due to the conflicts of Majin Buu, and then Demon King Abora during his reign, because it looks like he probably had the third eye, this is what eventually led to the barrier being created. Again, this is huge, because the barrier cannot be broken by brute force. Like, Goku can't just punch through it, he can't use a Kamehameha, although admittedly he never did. But so there's a question of like, could the barrier have been broken if, say, Neva died or was killed? Not sure, but probably not, since it is magic. So this also brings into question another plot point that I brought up since episode 10 with Rimus. If Neva is this powerful and likely very old, and since most of the super cosmology seem to have occurred after what Rimus did, with creation of the multiverse, does Neva, or would Neva, have known about Zalama, or even be related to him, like assuming that Zalama is a Namekian? Some think that Zalama is some kind of higher tier species. I think he's definitely a Majin at this point. But based off the feats and abilities, it kind of does synergize with what you would expect from the Nemeks with their magic and Dragon Ball wishing orb creation. So while it's possible that Zalama could have been a different species, maybe by Occam's razor, this is simply, just ancestor Namekian. And maybe by the end of the series, we get answers on this. That's what I'm hoping for. Same thing with the origins of the angels, Zeno, and even the gods of destructions. Now, the last part of the episode involves them passing through the passageway from the spell and then entering Demon Realm 1. The ship starts malfunctioning again. This is like, the third or fourth time. This time it's due to the heat, because they're getting closer and closer to the core of the actual Demon Realm cosmology, because it's all in the shape of an eye, basically. So Demon Realm 1 is like in the core. It's kind of like hell. So the heat, as well as previous damage from their earlier encounters, has kind of taken a drag on the ship. So this apparently is the final time they're going to be using a ship, so that's good. So they abort the ship, Vegeta carries Bulma, everyone flies out, Hybis carries one of the Dragon Balls, and then Glorio carries the other one, which of course is going to be somewhat important as they go somewhere with this likely betrayal. But the scene switches to a gag scene with the Timu Ginyu Force. I saw a comment about that. I think that's pretty funny. And they have an interaction with the Majin Bros, right? Which is, it was a gag scene about candy and chocolate, so insignificant. But, this is like what I would say okay little jokes that, you would expect in a story like this. Insignificant to the current state of the plot, but I didn't have an issue with the scene. I just think that it was a little bit out of place. And then the scene switches back to Goku and Co. They're falling into Demon Realm 1, one of their districts and palace. Obviously, Gomah and Degesu catch wind of this. The assembled Gendarmerie forces begin to move out. And this is basically an all-out war, an all-out attack. And this is where the episode 14 ends. Overall, I didn't really enjoy this episode. I may have enjoyed this episode a little bit more than 13, but really it's not by much. Again, my biggest issue is that the pacing is not good. A lot of this boils down to the fact that we all know now that it's 20 episodes. I mean, you can check Hulu. It shows the last episode air date. But I just think that even if I look at this episode in a vacuum without any prior knowledge of what may be happening in the future, it just seems like a lot of the stuff could have been condensed or better structured. I almost want to say that Daima may have been more than 20 episodes. Like, it's very possible that like whatever script Toriyama had for this entire series was very long, just like with the Broly script, because I think the Broly script was like 3 hours and they cut it down to an hour basically. And this could be the case with Daima. We won't know until there are interviews and guides, but I would not be surprised if maybe this is why the pacing feels like very jagged. For this episode, I liked how the plot did move a little bit forward. I liked the scenes with Neva. He's been a great character. Same thing with Hybis with some of his humor. And then finally getting into the first Demon Realm. But I just feel like the pacing is going to continue to be an issue as we move forward. But we shall see. Alright guys, so now with episode 15, again this is me cutting in, things are finally kind of picking up where we left off. There's this all-out war from all sides of the Gendarmerie forces, both in the air and the ground infantry. We do see, the staff lasers and batons that these Gendarmerie troops have. Goku and Co obviously don't want to kill them, and so they're just merely trying to push their way through to get Dende. Many people are upset with this. When I first watched the episode, I was kind of like, it's taking a little bit longer than it should, but I didn't have a problem with the fact that they're being damaged from the weapons, because remember, it's not really a secret, that in previous Dragon Ball series and mediums, we've seen characters using basic energy blasters or melee weapons or techniques that can harm Goku and his friends, whether it's from the Z era or in the Super era. I mean, ROF comes to mind with Goku being nearly killed with a single ring energy blast right from Sorbet. Or even in the Tournament of Power, right before the Tournament of Power, Goku's, Farmer Goku, he's like in town, he has that little interaction with the human thieves, and he gets grazed and injured by human bullets, right? And this is a super, this is Super Goku. So, and then we've also seen Broly with the shock collar from Paragus. So, it's been established that there are tools and weapons that can cause some kind of damage to these characters. Obviously not killing them, but doing damage. And like I said in the previous episode, it's been established that the Modulite is the power source for most of this Demon Realm technology, the science. And considering even Bulma couldn't understand the technology and the tech, she couldn't even repair the ship back in episode like 2 or 3. And even, we've seen with Dr. Juro, with the androids and the energy siphoning devices, and then of course Cell, and then even with Dr. Hito with the Gammas 1 and 2 with their blasters. And those are just what appears to be normal blasters, and they're able to do damage and harm to Piccolo and Gohan post Tournament of Power. So it's been established that there are weapons and instruments that can prove useful in Dragon Ball, for example the Dragon Ball radar, and other things. So I would say is fair to criticize in the sequence is Shen's not even doing anything. Like, Shen is literally cowering behind Glorio, and it doesn't really seem in his character to just be a side character or a bystander when he's literally a martial artist. He has magic. We've seen it when he fought Fat Boo, and we've seen it in Super. He has useful magic, and this is a perfect opportunity for them to give us more abilities that the Glens can use. And even Glorio's there using his blaster. Why doesn't he use his magic to use the lightning attack to just chain it up and destroy all the enemies? He doesn't have to necessarily kill them, but he could still use that ability. That's a fair criticism, I think, versus just the fact that the weapons can actually do damage. Because again, it's just a drawn out scene. So that's the issue I had with that part of this episode. As for the other criticism, why doesn't Goku and Vegeta, just go Super Saiyan or higher to beat these groups? That's a fair point. I've established they don't want to kill them, and they're probably trying to conserve their energy for whatever the final boss is. But this does end up happening at the end of the episode. I mean, they do power up. Now, as the war is continuing, Gomah does finally notice that Hybis has the third eye. Gomah goes over its brief exposition and then tells Degesu to retrieve the third eye by any means necessary. Now, this does prove to probably be a fatal mistake because basically more to come on that, but this is where the narrator cuts in, and we haven't had this since the first episode, so this is why it's pretty important. So we get the full backstory on the third eye and how it got lost. What's interesting is that in previous incarnations, like with the Demon Kings, you can tell that this has been lost for thousands, maybe millions of years, or at least been used for sure. It's not fully clear yet, but some of the designs of the Demon Kings do look like characters from Dragon Quest. This makes sense because a lot of the art direction kind of borrows from Toriyama's style with Dragon Quest. Many people have already notated this. Some of the Demon Kings look like Gomah species, some look like a Glen, which is very interesting considering how the episode ends. And it also looks like whoever gets the third eye, based off the visuals, it looks like it obviously caused some kind of transformation, or they seem to get buffed up, like there's an increase in body mass. So it definitely suggests that the eye is going to cause some kind of physical transformation. Pretty obvious, but it's nice to get like a soft confirmation of that. Now the scene does switch back to the battle between Goku and Ko against the Gendarmerie. They're able to advance further into one of the districts closer to the castle, like the Noble District, basically. Essentially, it's the final push before the boss fight in any kind of RPG. They're stopped by what appears to be Gendarmerie tanks. Now, this is totally taken out of Sandland and the games if you've seen it. And this is pretty cool. This was a great thing about Sandland. This is a great thing about Toriyama because he loved the world wars and the technology and the suits and the uniforms and the cannons and all of that. So this is probably where he was going all in on the art direction with the tanks and the soldiers and stuff. So very, very well done in terms of the choreography. Again, people have problems with the tanks because of what Goku could do in Dragon Ball with the Red Ribbon Army. But again, these are established to be Demon Realm Modulite powered tanks. This is magic. It's magic and science. Magic has an effect on all characters. We've seen it established in all parts of the series, whether it's the Majin Buu arc or the Moral arc. Doesn't matter how strong you are, magic can have an effect. They've established that the Modulite is the power source for a lot of the magic-based technology. Again, this is a kids show, so I don't see how this part of the story people are having problems with that when it's been built up. But the fair criticism is again that this could have been sped up. They could have powered up to overpower these characters using these things. Now Piccolo does suggest just having him hold off all of the foes while Goku and his friends advance forward because of the Namekian regeneration. But it looks like the weapons that the Gendarmerie use, they last 10 days, and Neva says that if it hits a vital, you're done. Now, I mean, I don't know if I have a problem with this, but again, it's just a reference to, like, if you let your guard down, you get hit with a vital, it'll put you down. And, we've seen this already happen. So, didn't like it because, again, I think at this point, with how serious things are, because they are worried about Dende, I don't expect something like that to happen, especially to Piccolo. But then again, he has been written to be a forgetful character. So, he doesn't really seem to use his ears when it comes to hearing things like potential plot elements, and obviously isn't going to remember to go giant because he didn't do that until superhero. So there are some issues, but that it is established. Now, as it appears that Goku and Co cannot take the tanks, they are having an issue dealing with a lot of them. It looks like the third Demon Realm forces, headed by King Kadan, do arrive, and we get this great animation scene of the Kadan troopers or forces taking out the tanks and the rest of the Gendarmerie forces. They're using some kind of dynamite weapon. Thought that was kind of cool, kind of like an EMP grenade, not too sure. And then Goku finally does get serious, and he goes Super Saiyan and just blasts the crap out of the remaining fodder. And this path to the palace is then made clear. So we're pretty much at the climax. We're about to get a lot of revelations, probably fusions and forms, all that kind of stuff. But we get this final scene with Gomah's reaction to pretty much his imminent defeat, and then Degesu returns. But this is this scene was played out very differently. Degesu's got a totally different attitude and body language. He does not tell Gomah that he has the third eye, nor does he mention that he was able to get it. And obviously the scene with the girl who took the eye from Hybis, it was definitely either Degesu in disguise, since Glens are assumed to be genderless, so he could have used like a magic, like a Harlem jutsu, like Naruto, to do this kind of transformation and then get the eye, or he just paid off a denizen or threatened her or whatever to get the eye that way as well. Probably the latter, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was the former. So Degesu pretty much has the eye, I think, and this is big because Degesu, I've been hoping he was going to pull like a Zamasu or do something that kind of gives us some tension here, because again, he's essentially a Makaio Shin, and they've established this tension between him and his brother, and maybe even his sister. And the thing about the Demon Realm and Super Dragon Ball Heroes is all of the major villains have been Glens, right? They're Kaioshin, so he's the only character that fits the bill, really. I did not think. I mean, it was possible that Gomah could get the third eye. He still may get it, because we've seen in the opening that Degesu is like able to use some kind of magic, so maybe there's a skirmish between the two. But I mean, Degesu would fit the bill more to get the eye, or even Arensu, but I think Arensu is kind of being used for the Majin elements. So, and the next episode is literally called Degesu, and he's is apparently doing some pretty sinister stuff. I won't spoil, but the fact the episode is titled Degesu is probably important. So I'm sensing a betrayal. And then as far as my predictions for the next episodes and further, I'm just going to be honest, guys. It does seem like we are getting a new form. The only thing that I can say is that whatever this new form is, it's going to probably be very hard to reconcile with the other continuities like Super. I wouldn't get your hopes up with like a really well written exposition for the context. It's possible we'll get some few statements here and there, interviews with Yoku and stuff whenever this happens, but I'm not too sure. I'm going to try to be optimistic, keep an open mind like others have said, but I would say be very careful, guys, with the social media. It's possible that we'll have game data mines from Xenoverse 2 or Super Dragon Ball Heroes Divers or Kakarot, Dokkan Legends, you name it. Any game that has updates, it's possible they'll have files that will have names of things that should not be known. It's happened before. Literally, it happened with Xenoverse 2 with Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. So I would not be surprised if they leaked this. Same thing with Toei with their their toy lines and merchandise. They've leaked Super Dragon. They've leaked Rose. They've leaked Ultra Instinct. So I mean, they have a precedent for spoiling things very close to when stuff happens. So I would say go dark. Don't go on social media these next couple episodes, probably even the next episode, because you may not have a pure experience. Now, as far as like what I think a form is or whatever the fusion is going to be, for the form, I think that if there is this new form, which I think there is, the only way it would make sense to me is if Neva uses his magic to either amp up someone like Goku or Vegeta, or more likely if they get the third eye. It's possible that the third eye gets passed around, or by fighting someone who's using the third eye, maybe the the energy or the after effects, the ripple effects, causes some kind of reaction. You know, remember there are, like, I think moons and suns in this realm, so maybe that could have some kind of effect. I'm not too sure. Maybe even a spell that whoever uses the third eye does. If they use something on a character, maybe it causes a reaction. So there are ways of explaining away some kind of form. For the fusion, I'm not too sure whether it's one fusion or two fusions. I mean, I don't know how many of those bugs that they have, but I mean, I would hope to get a Goku and Shen fusion, but you know, I'm not holding my breath. Could it be a Goku and Vegeta fusion? I'm not too sure. Could be a Goku and Glorio fusion, but we shall see. But I definitely think that there's going to be a new form and a new fusion coming, as well as betrayals. But anyways, guys, I am still very excited to see how this last part of Daima is executed. Hoping it will have a good kind of landing, and I really hope people will have a like a greater appreciation of Daima as a whole. And especially the Journey to the West references, because I think this story has a lot of them, especially with this third eye thing coming up. So hopefully people have an interest in kind of exploring that and doing their own research. And who knows, maybe I'll make some videos on that. But anyways, more art and videos are coming up. Stay tuned, guys. I hope you all have a great rest of the weekend. This is JD signing out.